And okay, I'll share my screen and then we'll start. Okay, welcome. Thank you guys again for sharing your evening with us. My name is Dr. Dida. I'm a board certified physician. I'm an internist and a pediatrician by trade, so double board certifications in these fields. And today, we have you here today to listen to an interesting science, a science about reversible medical conditions. You see, there is now strong scientific evidence that exists that most of the chronic medical conditions that we face today as a result of something we call metabolic dysfunction, which is simply a fancy medical term to say energy shortage. That energy shortage is coming from two entities, insulin resistance and microbiome dysfunction. These sound big terms. I'm going to break them down the road. So, insulin.
We just lost sound. Sorry.
Dr. Dieter blew up the Zoom.
Dr. Dieter, we lost your sound too.
See, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. So before we have that hitch, I was saying that there's now evidence that this modern day diseases as a result of two entities, insulin resistance and microbiome dysfunction. These two entities result in metabolic dysfunction, what we call energy shortage. And that energy shortage then sits at the heart of modern day diseases we face today. So you could make a straight connection between this phenomenon of insulin resistance to the chronic issues, medical issues we face today, and dysbiosis or microbiome dysfunction, both of which I'll define to most of the modern day diseases we face today. Let's isolate each of them. Let's start with this insulin resistance issue. What is insulin resistant? It's simply a fancy medical term to say that your insulin is not working well. You see, insulin is a very important hormone in the body. In fact, insulin is the most critical hormone in the body. I call insulin the CEO of the body because insulin dictates the smooth structure, the smooth functioning and structure of the body. Insulin sits pivotal. I call it hormone numero uno. When it's functioning well, everything works well. When it's not, things go. You have trouble in the system. Why do I elevate insulin to that high of a role? Is because of this. The job of insulin has a very special job, and that's why I call it hormone numero uno. The job of insulin, this special hormone, is to mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. You see, when we eat, the end product of absorption is the release of glucose into the blood. That glucose that is released into the blood has to end up in the cell, okay? Glucose is an energy source. So insulin's job is to move that glucose out of the blood into the cell. It commands that. When the glucose gets into the cell, there is a special organelle in the cell here called the mitochondria. You may remember in your junior biology class of the mitochondria being called the powerhouse of the cell. In the mitochondria, the glucose goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain, with the result of an energy molecule called ATP. Okay, so ATP is just an energy molecule. Every cell in the body requires energy to function. The smallest entity of the body is the cell. Cell group up to form tissues. Tissues group up to form organs. Organ system. System forms the whole man. Every cell needs energy to function. When a cell doesn't have the energy it needs to function, the cell malfunctions. And the simplest definition of a disease is a group of cells, tissues, organs, or system that has malfunctioned. And you have to ask, why did the cell, tissue, organ, or system malfunction? It did because of the lack of energy. When it has no energy, it malfunctions. So why then is insulin so pivotal? Why then do I call insulin the CEO of the body, MVP, hormone numero uno? Because insulin sits at the heart of securing energy. When insulin is working well, the body can produce energy. Without insulin working well, the body cannot produce energy. We say you have insulin resistance when your insulin is not working well. So anytime when there is a breakdown in this energy producing process, we say you have insulin resistance. Now, let's try to understand how the breakdown occurred. Because once upon a time ago, when your creator made you and I, when our creator made you and I, he created us with our insulin to be working, created us perfectly. So how do you get to a stage where your insulin is not working well, you develop insulin resistance? It happens in two phases. The two phases of this. And the reason I want to explain to you how the breakdown occurs is so that you can now understand once I start explaining to you a solution, how this factors. If your car breaks down, you take it to the mechanic. The mechanic first runs a diagnostic to figure out where did Dr. Dieter's car break down, because once he can figure out how it broke down, then he can walk backwards. So how did this breakdown occur? It occurs in two ways. The very first is what I call too much fat. And too much fat results in the breakdown. Too much fat results in the breakdown of insulin or insulin resistance, and through a process of what I call chronic overnutrition. You see, we're consuming way too much calories than our bodies need. The statistics say that in today's day and age, we're consuming 30 to 35% more calories than our bodies need. Anytime we consume calories, we put insulin to work. Anytime. So when we start consuming too much calories, you're causing your body to work overtime. If you had a boss and the boss told you that, hey, Dr. Dieter, you have to work overtime, 30% of the time in this job, overtime, you're going to burn out. That's what's happening to our bodies because we're consuming too much calories, putting insulin to work. The body burns out. So how does too much fat result in insulin resistance or your insulin not working? When we eat, all the food we eat is converted into, when we eat any excess calories that the body doesn't need, this is a cell, a normal cell. Any excess calorie that the body doesn't need, the body takes the excess calories, converts that excess calories into fat, and stores that fat into this cell. This is just a replica of this normal cell. So the body takes the excess calories now, converts the excess calories into fat, doesn't know what to do with the fat, and comes and lumps that fat into this cell. And this fat has no business being in the cell, okay? God created us that this cell should not have this fat in it. This fat now occupies the space in the cell. Now that becomes a problem, and I now call this cell a fat-laden cell. It is pregnant with fat. Now, what happens is that when you have insulin in a normal situation, when there is glucose in the blood, what happens is insulin will come and knock at the door of this normal cell and tell the cell, I want you to take up glucose so that you could take it through the energy system to make us energy. And this cell happily does that. When it comes to the door of this cell and knocks on the door of this cell, knock, knock, cell, I want you to take up glucose so that we could pass it through the energy system to make energy. This fat-laden cell tells insulin, what, are you crazy? I got no room in the inn. The inn is full. If I were to bring glucose in, glucose is not going to have any place to lay its head. So the innkeeper, which is the cell, tells insulin, I'm sorry, the room is full because the room is now being occupied by this fat that has no business being there. If glucose cannot enter the cell, it cannot go through the mitochondria, it cannot go through the electron transport chain, the system that produces energy, you cannot produce energy. You have a deficiency of energy. So that's the first way in which you have that breakdown. And we say insulin resistance because of that. Too much fat, consuming too much calories that led to the excess calories converted into fat that now got lumped into this cell. Now, what happens is that because the glucose cannot enter the cell, that glucose now builds up in the blood. Okay, glucose accumulates in the blood. There is a one-to-one relationship between the concentration of glucose in the blood and the amount of insulin that the pancreas produces, which is the gland that produces insulin. So when glucose is high, there is a message that is sent to the pancreas to say, hey, you need to produce too much insulin, a high amount of insulin to match a high amount of insulin to match the glucose that is in the blood. So the pancreas now produces too much insulin. And too much insulin is not good, it's no bueno. Remember, I described insulin like the CEO of the body. It dictates the smooth functioning and structure of the body. Imagine a CEO of a big company that dictates the smooth functioning of the company. And one day that CEO comes to work and he has gone crazy. He has gone crazy. He's backing at others, at people. He is yelling at you at your desk, embarrassing you, say you're going to do it my way or the highway, just doing the unreasonable things. And that becomes his new pattern of operating. He loses his cool, calm collectiveness. When he starts acting like a bully and a tyrant, what happens is that his subordinates, the employees, lose respect for their boss. And when the employee loses his respect for his boss, the employee becomes reluctant to do what the boss says. If I lose my respect for my boss and the boss comes to me and say, hey, Dr. Dieter, I got this project that we need to have done, um, and it needs to be done in 60 days. But I've lost my respect for my boss. I don't want to lose my job, but I'm not excited to go to war for him or to go to do anything for him because I lost respect for him. So instead of bringing my A game to that project, which I usually do, I do it reluctantly. I bring my B plus or my C game to it. So when you lose respect for somebody who is an authority, it's hard for you to do what they want you to do. Translate that to the cell. When insulin is running high, insulin is acting as a bully and a tyrant to the cell, yelling at the cell at a high tone, saying you're going to do things my way or the highway. And the cell doesn't take too kindly to that high, harassing, tyrannical tone of insulin. So the cell loses its respect for insulin. And when insulin now tells the cell, hey, open your doors this wide so that I can let glucose into the cell out of loss of respect is reluctant and opens its doors this wide. If the cell opens its doors this wide, less glucose will enter the cell and more glucose will accumulate in the blood, a narrower door. So that is going to cause more glucose to accumulate in the blood like that. The accumulation of more glucose in the blood causes things to go from fry pan to fire. It causes the pancreas to produce even more insulin. Even more insulin is like a CEO that was crazy at this level that raises their craziness level to even this level. okay, become even more tyrannical. What happens is that the employees of that CEO lose even more respect for their CEO. You translate that to the cell. When insulin becomes even higher, insulin is a bigger bully. The cell loses even more respect for insulin. And when insulin tells the cell, open your doors this wide, initially the cell had its doors this wide. It has lost now more respect for insulin. When insulin asks the cell to open its doors, it will now have its doors this way. So a narrow door out of loss of respect, it just causes more glucose to build in the blood, and it just causes a vicious cycle. These two ways is how you develop insulin resistance. Your insulin not being able to do its smooth job to mobilize glucose into the cell so that energy can be produced. And when you have insulin resistance, it now results in diseases like this. Now, it's very easy for some people to listen to a presentation like this and think insulin, we're talking about just diabetes. No, insulin resistance is the root of many of the modern day diseases that we face. It is the cause of diabetes, yes, but it is the cause of many other things. When your insulin is not working well, you see how that glucose has accumulated in the blood. It results in a rise in glucose more than the threshold, you have diabetes. Okay. But insulin resistance is not just diabetes. Remember, when you have insulin resistance, you have a deficiency of energy. If a cell doesn't have the energy it needs to function, the cell malfunctions and you have diseases. I want to just give you a link between insulin resistance and cancers. Some of you may not know it or may find it interesting. Many of us think that cancers are bad luck, but you'll be surprised to learn that only 10 to 30% of cancers are due to bad luck. Only 10 to 30%. The other 70% of cancers are due to insulin resistance. In fact, there are 5 cancers directly related to insulin resistance: breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer. Those cancers are hugely driven by insulin resistance. When you have insulin resistance, one of the things that can cause you increase your risk of having those cancers is that it causes abnormal replication of the cells. There's a special way in which our cells have to turn over all the time, turn over all the time to keep a tissue functioning. And there is a special replication process in the body called mitosis. It's a process where one becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight, eight becomes 32. Okay, that's a normal process that takes place in our body to repair, to turn over our cells. Insulin is a hormone that causes things to grow and replicate faster than they're supposed to. Let me ask you, when you're driving a car very fast compared to when you're driving a car very slow, where are you most likely to have an accident? Driving too fast or driving too slow? Driving too fast, correct? Guess what? When your insulin is high, when insulin is high, it's acting like a growth hormone, causing things to go fast, causing your body to go into overdrive, causing this mitosis to go into overdrive. So you could make mistakes. So instead of a process of one becoming two, it could be one becoming four, four becoming eight, eight becoming 8 becoming 32, skipping. You're proliferating faster than you should be. Normally, should 1 become 2, 2 become 4, just a doubling. When you have insulin resistance, it could mess up that process. This growth is responsible for abnormal growths that lead to cancers, cancerous cells. The cell has unchecked growth. Another thing is that your DNA needs to repair itself all the time, and we get mutations in our DNA that can lead to cancers. But luckily, our creator made a system of check and balances that system helps to repair that mutation. We call it DNA repair. DNA repair requires energy, ATP. When you have insulin resistance, that deprives the body of the energy that it needs. The body doesn't have that energy to repair that damaged gene. That damaged gene propagates into a cancer. If you have insulin resistance and you have a cancer already diagnosed with a cancer, one of the best things that could improve your survival of that cancer is lowering your insulin levels, reversing your insulin resistance. Because when your insulin is high, it's giving a lot of glucose to the cancer, and the cancer requires glucose to survive. If you starve the cancer of its food by controlling your insulin or controlling insulin resistance, you have a big, big chance of beating that cancer. I can't go through all of the relationships here for the purpose of time, but this slide is not exhaustive. It's just a simple depiction of how insulin resistance is the core of most of these diseases. I want to look at the other thing, the second thing, dysbiosis, or what we call microbiome dysfunction. To understand what dysbiosis is, understand what microbiome dysfunction is, it's important to understand what the microbiome is. The microbiome is a group of about 10, it's a group of about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria. 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in the gut, right there. That's a microbiome, 30 to 100 bacteria. These bacteria perform a very special function. When God created us, He created us in such a way that we live in a symbiotic relationship with this bacteria. It means we do for them, they do for us. We scratch their back, they scratch us. And what happens is we're supposed to provide food and shelter for this bacteria, and they're supposed to provide some very important functions for us. The function of the microbiome that I want to highlight, it helps to protect the gut from pathogenic bacteria. Pathogenic just simply means disease causing, and it does so by producing a very special short chain fatty acid to do that. These short chain fatty acids are only produced by the biological activity of this bacteria. You can't get these short chain fatty acids from anywhere. And what they do is they go to provide security in the gut. You see, the cells of the gut are lined together like this, one after another. This is one cell, this is another cell. They come together and make the wall. At the place where they meet is called the tight junction. This junction is an area of vulnerability in the integrity of the wall. So these short chain fatty acids act like a sealant. They act like cement. They come and pour cement on this place to seal that, to make it tight. The tighter it is, nothing can escape into the blood. When it's not tight, when it's loose, through that looseness, bacteria can seep into the blood. Toxins or undigested food materials can seep into the blood, cause chronic inflammation, or cause infection. The other thing is that the microbiome, these organisms, help to train the immune system. When I first learned about this, I was blown away that 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. Your immune system, 70% in the gut. The other 30% resides in the bone marrow, the lymph nodes, the lymphatics. And the microbiome, these bacteria that God purposely put in our gut, help our immune system to be able to function well, to recognize what is a threat and deploy the appropriate level of force, tantamount to that threat, not to overreact, not to underreact, to equally recognize what is not a threat as what is not a threat. It looks like this. When these bacteria are healthy, they train the they train the immune system to have a healthy response. It looks like this. The immune system, the microbiome tells the immune system, you see that bacteria? That bacteria is a bad guy. But even though he's a bad guy, he's a simple guy. He's a simple person to do away with. He's not going to cause us so much trouble, and he's an easy kill. We need to get rid of him. He's a bad bacteria, but we can take care of him with a simple stone. Just a simple stone. You just aim a stone at him, you take him out. It's a weak bacteria. Then it may see another guy and it tells the immune system, do you see that guy right there? And the immune system is looking, no, I can't see the guy you're talking about. What guy? And the microbiome says the reason you cannot see that guy right there is because that guy is in camouflage. He's in camouflage. And be careful with that guy. You see now? Do you see him? Yeah, I see. Listen, that guy's not the enemy. Even though he's in camouflage, don't go firing any bullets at him. He's part of us. Leave him alone. He's not the enemy. Now, when the immune system is, when the microbiome, these organisms are not healthy, they radicalize the immune system to be hot-tempered, to be ready to pick a fight. Have you ever met somebody that you may tell them good afternoon in a wrong tone and they are ready to curse you out? Just, I mean, hot-tempered, just ready for a fight. That's what the microbiome does to the immune system when the microbiome is not healthy. It trains the immune system to be ready to fight, to have its hand on the trigger, ready to pull the trigger. Radicalizes the immune system. It looks like this. The microbiome sees a bacteria and tells the immune system, you know what? That bacteria there is a bad guy, but you know, we could probably take him out with a stone, but why use a stone? We've already determined that he's a bad guy, he needs to die. Why not just drop a grenade in his backyard? So, for a bacteria that could have been killed with a simple stone, a precision weapon, you're now dropping a grenade in the backyard. That's going to make a big explosion that is going to cause collateral damage, inflammation, and injury to bystander cells. That's what happens. The other thing is, they mean that if the microbiome may see that guy in camouflage, you know, and tells the immune system, you know what? I see that guy in camouflage. Let's take him out. He's not even thinking whether, oh, you know what, that guy in camouflage could be, and it could be not an enemy, could be part of us, and is part of our common. The immune system, the microbiome doesn't care. He just tells the immune system, let's fire. You know, we cannot take a chance. You know, this guy may be the enemy. So without thinking it through, and tells the immune system, we're in the heat of the battle here. If we shoot on this guy in camouflage, and we'll take him to the autopsy table later and try to determine who is who. If we take him to the autopsy and determine that he was the enemy, yay, good for me. My let's shoot first was the right thing. But if we take him to the autopsy table and it ends up that this was one guy who was part of our camp, oh well, it was the heat of the battle. I had to make an action. So that's what happens when the immune system, when the microbiome is not healthy. It radicalizes the immune system. The immune system now starts to attack cells of the body that were not meant to be attacked. And that's how you develop autoimmune diseases. So those are some functions of the microbiome I want to highlight, and highlight a few others. So when we say you have microbiome dysfunction or dysbiosis, what is this is that there's an imbalance in the bacteria population in the gut. You see, the bacteria in the gut, about 50% of the bacteria are bad bacteria, and the other 50% are what we call good bacteria. What they do is they do a check and balance to each other, balance each other out. Okay. Now, we say you have dysbiosis when the bad bacteria increase in number at the expense of the good bacteria that decrease in number to maybe 30%. And why do you have dysbiosis? Dysbiosis comes as a result of shortage of food. The food for these organisms in the gut is fiber. Unfortunately, we do not consume enough fiber in this day and age. And when we don't consume enough fiber, these organisms don't have the food they need. Now, when they don't have the food they need, survival of the fittest sets in. Anytime there is shortage and emergency, survival sets in. Imagine when think back in the times of COVID, the pandemic. Most of the time when you went to the grocery store or to Costco or whatever, you'll be lucky if you found toilet tissue on the shelf. You'll be lucky if you found bread on the shelf. You'll be lucky if you found milk on the shelf. Survival of the fittest. People were just grabbing. It's the same thing that happens in the gut. When there's a shortage of food, the bad bacteria are the stronger bacteria. So because of that shortage, they in their strength, they're stronger. They hoard the little food that is there and then say to themselves, you know what, we don't have enough food for the good and the bad, and we are stronger, so why don't we increase our army so that we can keep a hold and a monopoly on this little food that is there, so that they now increase to 70% at the expense of the good bacteria that go to 30%. When that happens, we say you have dysbiosis. And when you have dysbiosis, it's an unhealthy gut. You now have a slew of medical issues. Lupus is an autoimmune disease where the immune system has attacked the body. Hashimoto, autoimmune disease. Multiple sclerosis, autoimmune disease. Um, Celiac, autoimmune disease. Asthma is an inflammatory disease coming from dysbiosis because of the immune system causing inflammation. So multiple different things. Even type 2 diabetes is also linked to the gut just as much as it's linked to insulin resistance. Because when you have dysbiosis, it turns up inflammation. Increased inflammation decreases insulin sensitivity. A decreased insulin sensitivity means an increase in insulin resistance. Now, I want to highlight something which, when I learned, was very surprising to me as a physician. When I learned about this 3 years ago, I was surprised that anxiety and depression, most of the mental health issues that we face, are coming from the gut. Why is that? There is a hormone called serotonin. That hormone serotonin is what we call our happy hormone. It maintains our happiness, maintains our mood. Did you know that 90% of that hormone is produced in the gut? 90. The other 10% of that hormone is produced in the central nervous system. So the gut is literally the factory for our happiness, for our happy hormone. So when 90% is produced in the gut and the gut is not healthy, that 90% cannot be produced. You're going to have anxiety and depression. This other slide, so that's dysbiosis, and this slide again is not exhaustive. There's so many diseases that are linked to dysbiosis that I cannot put on this slide for the purpose of space. This here is what I call a metabolic sequence of inflammation, this slide. It tells you that the two core things, insulin resistance and dysbiosis, result in energy dysfunction. So you have a fire that starts right here. The fire spreads to metabolic dysfunction, energy shortage, and then spreads to oxidative injury of the cell. Anytime a cell is injured, it will cry out to the immune system. When the cell cries out to the immune system deploys an inflammatory response. When it comes back to the cell, it finds smoke in the cell. It doesn't see fire. The fire started 2 houses ago and spread to metabolic dysfunction in the cell. So this inflammatory response is unsuccessful in solving the problem. Anytime there is inflammation in a cell, the cell gets injured. There's bystander collateral damage. Any injured cell will again cry out to the immune system every time. So this cell now is injured by this initial inflammation. It cries back out to the immune system. The immune system deploys another inflammatory response. But it's the problem here is still smoke. The main problem is fire here. Whereas the core of the problem continues to go on and trigger this other inflammation over and over. So you're having inflammation in this fall, inflammation in this fall. You're now having chronic inflammation that is responsible for many of the symptoms and diseases that we face. Now, as bleak as this is, remember I said at the start of this slide that this chronic modern day diseases come from these two entities. There is now science which is should be hope to you, that says that if you were to address the two root causes, the insulin resistance and the gut issues, and restore the energy shortage, the diseases that came as a result of the energy shortage also go away. And I put it this way: if you're driving a car and the car runs out of gas, that car is going to stop. The car stops not because of intrinsic failure of the engine. The car stops because its energy source, its gas, is gone. If you're able to go buy gas and come back to your car on the side of the road and put gas back into that car starts to work again. I've run out of gas a couple of times, and each time I ran out of gas and I put gas back in my car, I never had any paranoid thought, oh man, I hope this car is gonna start. No, because I knew that the problem was it stopped because I ran out of gas. When I put gas in it, it will start again. So it is with the body. It is so simple but so profound. These modern day diseases are because our bodies have been robbed of energy. And if you were to restore the energy that has been stolen due to dysbiosis or due to insulin resistance, it's just like putting gas back in that car. Your body starts to work again. And so I want to introduce to you a solution, a solution called the Feel Great System, made up of two products, Unimate and Balance. And what does it do? It uses the science of intermittent fasting and fiber supplementation to help to reverse these two issues, because these two issues were what caused the stolen energy. Okay, so if you could restore the stolen energy, the diseases go away. And these two products are called nutraceuticals. Nutraceuticals mean that they are products made 100% from plants. These do not have any medications in them. 100% from plants, and have huge therapeutic health benefits. You see, if I gave you a time machine to go back 200 years back in the future and report back to me to see if you're going to find anybody who had lupus, or find anybody who had type 2 diabetes, or find anybody who had high blood pressure or fatty liver, you're going to come back to me and say, hey, doc, I found nobody like that. Why is that? Because 200 years ago, our ancestors ate foods that were 100% naturals. The foods that we are eating today, if I were to drop a food that I'm eating today in my great 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 grandfather's lap, he'll be stunned as to what I'm eating. They ate 100% plant and 100% animal, naturals. Our foods are not that way, which have caused those problems. So this science, this uses the science of intermittent fasting and fiber supplementation to reverse insulin resistance. We're eating too much. Intermittent fasting is a big core of helping us have a healthy biology. Our ancestors did not eat 3 meals a day. Some estimates say that our ancestors 200 years ago ate 3 to 5 times a day. If I say in this day and age that we eat 3 times a day, that will be an underestimation, because we're grazing throughout the day, eating 3 meals and snacking throughout. Remember, when you're eating so much, you're taking more calories than your body need. You're causing insulin to work over time. Your body goes into burnout. So one of the pillars in reversing insulin resistance is to giving your body a break. We all need a break from work. We all need a break from bam, 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 bam. And so insulin resistance, giving your body a break by intermittently fasting, helps to bring down insulin resistance. The Unimate helps to do that. Now, let me show you how these two products working in conjunction help to reverse both of these issues. Unimate is made from a plant that is native to South America called the yerba mate plant. And the plant is very rich in a special phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. Okay. Now, so one property of chlorogenic acid is that it helps you to be able to fast without willpower. When you take in the Unamate, it causes the body to produce its own GLP-1s. When you produce GLP-1s, the hunger hormone, it makes you not to feel hungry, so that you can go for a period of time where you're giving your insulin rest a break, at least 16 hours. On this protocol, we recommend that you fast for 16 hours. You eat just lunch and dinner. After dinner, nothing else to eat or drink that has calories, until lunch the next day. And this product, I have it here, I'm drinking it. It helps you to be able to fast in that morning period so that your insulin is having a break, not working over time, because it produces GLP-1s. What happens when you're fasting is that your body has to switch its energy source. You see, we have two energy sources. Glucose is our main energy source, and fat is our second energy source. Now, let's see. Let's do that. Okay, glucose is our main energy source, and fat is our second energy source. The body uses 80% of the body's energy needs are glucose, 20% is fat. Okay. I want you to think of glucose as the body's check-ins account. Okay. Glucose is the body's check-ins account, and fat is like the body's savings account. You're gonna use your check-ins account in periods of plenty. When periods become tough, you have to switch to your savings account. Okay. So when you're fasting, your body's glucose levels are low. Okay. When your body's glucose levels are low, the body can no longer depend on glucose to maintain metabolic or biological activity. It needs an alternate source of fuel. So the body is now forced to go to leave its check-ins account and go to its savings account. In periods of hardship, when you lose your job, your hardship, does your mortgage stop? Your mortgage doesn't stop, right? You still have to pay your mortgage. So think about when you're fasting, it's a period of hardship. The body still has to continue to pay its bills, its energy bills. So it moves to burning fat. And the Unamate helps you to be able to fast. And when you're fasting, then what happens is that the body now moves to burning fat. And you think about that cell that was filled with fat. Let's go back to this cell. This cell that was filled with fat, you're fasted now. The body now has to rely on its savings accounts. It taps into the savings and uses the savings, and this cell now becomes like this because it needs the fat in that cell to continue to pay its bills. So that's one way in which the consumption of this helping you to be able to fast can help to be able to reverse insulin resistance. The other thing is that the chlorogenic acid has an intrinsic property of causing fat in the cell to burn. Intrinsic property of causing you to burn fat. A process, what we call lipolysis. Okay, so when you consume the yerba mate, the Unamate made from the yerba mate, which is what I'm consuming, it goes to this cell and starts to burn the fat in this cell and causes this cell to become like this. So you're having two processes helping to be able to liberate this cell of its fat. When the cell is liberated of its fat, all that glucose that could not enter the cell now gets into the cell. When it goes into the cell, it could run through the electron transport chain to make energy, ATP. You're restoring the energy shortage. Now, that helps to solve the second problem. The second problem of too much insulin. There's a one-to-one relationship between glucose and insulin. So when all the glucose now enters this cell that is now free, the concentration of glucose in the blood drops. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, guess what? The pancreas gets another message. You need to lower your tone now and produce a low amount of insulin. A low amount of insulin is like that CEO that was crazy that now comes to work one day and calls an in-service to his employees and says, "Hey, I have been a jerk for the last 2 months. I am so sorry. Please forgive me." The employees are taken aback by the humility of their boss coming down to earth to tell them, "I'm sorry, I wronged you." When the employees hear that, they forgive their boss, they regain their respect back for the boss. And when the boss says jump, they say how high. You translate that to the cell. When insulin now is running low, insulin is no longer acting like a bully to the cell. The cell now says, "You know what? I can deal with that insulin guy." When insulin now tells the cell, "Open your doors this wide so I can let glucose in," the cell says, "I'll be happy to." The cell opens its doors. You have glucose flowing into the cell to go through the electron transport chain to make energy, reversing that. Now, that's what this does. The other product in this nutraceutical system is called balance. Balance is just simply fiber. Remember, I said we do not consume enough fiber. Fiber is so important for our metabolism. It also helps to reverse insulin resistance by causing this cell to return to looking back like normal, like this. Exact same mechanism. But the other thing that fiber does is that it improves insulin sensitivity or makes your cell to be more less insulin resistant. How does it do that? It does that by decreasing your glucose spikes, so your glycemic index. It slows the absorption of carbohydrates. If you and I went to a restaurant to eat lasagna, we ordered the same plate of lasagna, and that's you and that's me, and you ate your plate of lasagna, which is a high carbohydrate meal, without fiber, your blood sugar will do this, and that blood sugar may be 180. For me, I know a thing or two about fiber, that if I eat fiber first, it's going to slow my blood sugar rise. And what I do is I consume the balanced product, which is rich in fiber, and I eat exactly the same plate of lasagna. What's going to happen is my blood sugar is going to do this. And that blood sugar, the peak may be a blood sugar of 70. You're not eating exactly the same plate of lasagna, but your blood sugar has gone up to 180, mine 70. What's going to happen is, because your blood sugar is 180, your pancreas is going to produce a commensurate high amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar 180. So your pancreas is going to produce 20 units of insulin for you there. For me, I've only produced 70. My pancreas is going to produce a commensurate lower amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 70. So 5 units. I want you to think of 20 units of insulin like the crazy CEO. Okay, the bully CEO that the employees did not respect. And I want you to think about 5 units of insulin as the humble CEO. That's what fiber does to you. And the last thing is that because you produce more insulin than I have, insulin is a hormone that increases the amount of calories that you're going to store. The more insulin you produce, the more calories you're going to store from that meal. So for you, because your insulin was 20 units, from that plate of lasagna, you're going to gain maybe 950 calories. For me, from the exact same plate of lasagna, I'm only going to gain 300 calories. Why is that important? Remember that when you consume more calories than the body needs, the body takes those excess calories, converts them into fat, and now lumps that fat into the cell and causes you to be insulin resistant. So that's what fiber does to help to reverse insulin resistance. And the last thing is that fiber is food for the microbiome, and so helps to reverse dysbiosis. Food for the bacteria in the gut. Fiber is one of those nutrients that we as humans do not have the enzymes to be able to digest. It's food for the gut. Every living organism, whether it's a lion in the jungle of Cameroon or a bacteria in the gut, needs chow, needs food. And fiber is a food for the microbiome. You give it food, there'll be enough food for the good and the bad. There'll be no need for infighting. You don't have dysbiosis. And so I'll end by saying that in as much as the modern day diseases, can be traced back to insulin resistance and dysbiosis sitting at the core of them. The science is now overwhelming that if you were to reverse the root cause of these diseases, those diseases go away. Diabetes goes away, high blood pressure go away. And so I end by making this bold statement that this nutraceutical system, the Feel Great system, which I've been using with a lot of success now, can help you take back your health again, help you reclaim your health again. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll turn it on to the moderators and we'll take some questions.
Dr. Kinney, did you want to show some proof or did you want me to?
Sure, I can if you want. It's up to you. Here we go. So this was me in February 26th. God, I can't believe it's almost 2 years now. But you can see how inflamed, and I had so many signs of insulin resistance. I had no idea. I had skin tags and belly fat, exhausted, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver, sleep apnea, and I had AFib at the time. About a month and a half later, I was in the hospital for nearly 2 months. I almost died from my appendix rupturing, and then I had sepsis after that. This was me 35 days apart, and my AFib is gone, my sleep apnea is gone, my fatty liver's gone. I have energy like I can't even imagine. I get up every day around 4 in the morning. I feel fabulous. This is Keith. I believe Keith's going to be sharing, but this is a diabetic foot ulcer. So this is where this can lead to when people develop diabetes. We'll let Keith tell that story, but I have a question for everyone on here. If you saw the couple here on the right side and you saw them later on, would you ask them what they're doing? I mean, if you would, do me a favor and just put a question mark in the chat. Now, the reason I bring this to your attention is when your family and friends observe these kind of changes in you, which they will, which is why we guarantee this, they're going to ask you what you're doing. And our company provides you with a discount code that you can then share with your family and friends that you want to get healthier with in the first place. They'll get the same price that you get direct from manufacturer, and you'll get a $10 coupon as our company's way of saying thank you. So this is a friend of mine I've met through this process named John. John traveled 1 hour to share his testimony. The photo on the left, John had fatty liver, had never drank alcohol in his life. He had triple digit high blood pressure numbers, both numbers. He also, on top of this, had sleep apnea so bad he was waking up the neighbors. This is John, I think he said 6 months, it was 4 months later, down 60 pounds. Now, all those things are reversed. Now, this is our own Dr. Dieter. As he says, he was a healthy boy right here. I had him beat by about 20, 30 pounds, though. But Dr. Dieter weighed 220 here. He found the power of fasting alone. And a lot of people ask us, why not just fast? I mean, I can fast, a lot of people can't. This was Dr. Dieter, 6 years of fasting, running 2 to 3 times a week long distance. Tremendous changes. This right here in the pink sport coat, Dr. Dieter had added those two products that he just shared with you, the 2Ts and the Fiber Matrix, and that's 2 months apart. Now, this right here is a friend of mine named Colleen. And this was Colleen here. Blood sugar spikes all the time, type 2 diabetes. This is Colleen a year later. She no longer has diabetes. She's no longer on a statin. She takes 1/4 of a thyroid medication. And the last time I talked to Colleen, she said she probably wouldn't be on that anymore the way her doctor was speaking. Now, Dr. Dieter was talking about, and I forgot to mention with Colleen, her mood was greatly improved as well. Now, this right here is our friend Deb. And Deb was a size 12 with severe insulin resistance here. She had gut dysbiosis, as Dr. Dieter so eloquently taught. But on top of this, she was getting a lot of allergies. She was also had IBS and autoimmune disease. She had headaches, low testosterone. And this was 7 months apart from a size 12 to a size 4 by fixing insulin, feeding her gut, detoxing the liver with the protocol. She was able to reverse her IBS, her her allergies are gone, and so are headaches. Now, this is Angelita, a nurse practitioner who had struggled with her gut health. She had struggled with insulin resistance unbeknownst to herself for years. For 10 years, the picture on the left, she was on 6 medications per day. She was on 5 for GERD and IBS and 1 for depression, as you just learned about serotonin. In 2 weeks, Angelita got off all of those, and Angelita looks like a fitness model even after having 2 kids. This is her husband. I call Dr. GQ. Dr. Nanye is a pharmacist. He creates drugs, and this was him. And that's him on the protocol. So a lot of people say, well, I don't really need to lose weight. Maybe I need to gain muscle. And if you're on this protocol and you've noticed an increase in strength and muscle, feel free to put that in the chat. Now, this is another gentleman. So we are actually FSA and HSA approved. This is another diabetic foot ulcer patient. This right here, he started using the protocol in January of 2025. I can't believe it's been a year. Type 2 diabetic for 25 years under managed care. This is him 1 month and 9 days later. He used this FSA to pay for the protocol, completely transform his life. This is Keith's progress, another diabetic foot ulcer. That's $180,000 using a hyperbaric chamber. This is 3.5 months on the protocol. This is Chopper. This is, I don't even know how many weeks apart, but he was able to reverse his type 2 diabetes in 3 weeks. His doctor took him off, I believe it was metformin if memory serves. His memory, his mood is back. His PTSD symptoms are gone. That's Chopper. This is a friend of mine, Keith. He's a pastor. And that is 90 pounds difference in the picture on the right. He reversed his type 2, his hypertension, and Chris has got his health back and he's drugs free, just like Chopper. This is something I want to share as well. This is our friend Mary. And we see this so many times in people. I mean, Mary had tried everything from Jenny Craig to Weight Watchers to you name the diet. It wasn't like Mary was lazy. And she ended up getting sleeve surgery done, gastric sleeve. Well, what they do is they have you eat 5 to 6 small meals per day. And every time you eat, your blood sugar goes up, which means that if you're diabetic, you're injecting more insulin. If you're not a diabetic, your body's making more insulin, and insulin is your fat storing hormone. It's your insulating hormone. And Mary gained all of that back. Mary found this protocol, and this is Mary today. So these are also low energy. I like to point out there is natural occurring caffeine in the tea, but this is a picture of the box in Canada, and the theobromine trumps the effects of that. And I want to share this here. This is a beautiful lady I've met through this process, and she had fatty liver. And I just want everyone to think about this. This was on Christmas Day that she sent me this. And she's lost 90 pounds. She feels 30 years young. She's got her hypertension's gone, fatty liver she dealt with for 5 years gone. And these are the kind of messages that we receive every day. Dr. Dieter, again, thank you so much for your time, your expertise. I know that I think a few people are going to share. So, Keith, Chopper, if you guys have a moment, I'd love to hear from you guys if you could. Keith, we can start with you if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Dr. Kenny. So yeah, I was type 2 diabetic for 25 years on a whole slew of insulin and pills. And in 2018, I got diagnosed with Guillain-Barré, which ravaged my legs and left me not able to walk. Um, and after that, I had wounds that wouldn't heal. Obviously saw the foot ulcer that in January of this year or last year, um, took my life. And I was gone for a minute. They called my daughter on her gender reveal party to tell her that I wasn't going to make it. Um, and when I came out of the hospital, like Dr. Kenny, I had AFib. My blood pressure was 200 over 100. Um, I was a hot mess, and I came across this protocol in May of last year, and I watched for about a month. And I came across who I wanted to work with, and I bought into the system. And literally within one day, my energy level was through the roof. Day number 2, I was off 108 units of insulin that I'd been taking for a long time. Um, Within the first 2 months, I was down 60 pounds. I was off 14 of my 15 meds. And at the end of month 3, I met with all my doctors. I kind of planned it that way. So I would have all my information at 90 days. I was down 65 pounds. I had lost 10 inches on my waist, if memory serves me correct. I was off all 15 medication. My mood was, I had finally come out of my depression. I've now been on the protocol for 6 months.
Yeah.
I've lost over 90 pounds, 14 inches on my waist. Um, I've never felt better. Joint pain is gone. All my autoimmune symptoms are gone. My eyes look better than they have in the past 4 years.
Keith,
Um,
this is a photo of you here, brother. I just want to
yeah,
show everybody. Look at this.
yeah, I was, when your face is bigger than your hat, that's not a good sign. Um, but my eye doctor, I was getting injections in both eyes. Um, my eye doctor had told me he hadn't seen him look this good in 4 years. My cardiologist is truly amazed. My foot doctor, I just saw him a couple weeks ago. He he can't believe it. He said I'm a walking billboard. Um, and so yeah, I kid you not, I literally never expected the kind of results I've got. It truly does what it says it's going to do. Then I've got to meet some wonderful, amazing people that have helped along the way.
Brother, so happy for you, man. I mean, you're a walking testimony of anything I've ever seen. So I'm glad I think I'm glad your grandson gets to play with you. I don't
Yeah,
know who's more honorary, man, but
I get
congrats.
to teach him all kinds of bad things.
I've spent enough time to know with you. So, oh man, it's so great, brother.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
I
Keith.
will, Dr. Kenny, I would like to answer a question in the
Of
chat,
course.
not typing, because this may make more sense explaining than typing. There's a question from Steve J. Okay, my question to Dr. Dieter is this: could a person with a 40% ejection fraction increase its ejection fraction by taking the help product you offer? That's the first question. I'll answer that first question and I'll answer the second. The answer is yes. This product helps to reconstitute the ventricular function. What I want you to understand, because somebody has a similar question about the heart, about heart failure symptoms, swelling, and shortness of breath. Your heart is a pump, it's a muscle. Your heart is a muscle. The muscle have cells in it, okay? I think you again remember every cell in the body requires energy to function. Your heart is, it's a muscle, and as a muscle, it's a group of cells, okay? There is the pumping mechanism of the heart. There is an there is the pumping action of the heart requires energy, ATP. When your heart doesn't have the energy that it needs, there's sodium, potassium pumps, or calcium channel pumps actually that help in contraction and relaxation of the muscle. Every muscle contracts and relax due to calcium pumps. Now, those calcium pumps require energy to power them. That energy comes when insulin is doing its work well. When insulin is not doing its work well, those pumps cannot pump and the heart cannot work. So we have found that patients who have heart failure and begin taking this, the restoration of their energy causes those ineffective calcium pumps, which were not working well, to begin pumping well. And yes, your ejection fraction can improve. I kid you not. So that's that to answer that part of your question. You said you also suffer from poor circulation around your extremities. Poor circulation is due to insulin resistance. When you have insulin resistance, it impairs blood flow to your tissues because of inefficiency of a very special signaling molecule called nitric oxide, which is supposed to cause vasodilation, opening of the arteries so that blood or the vessels so that blood could flow into those vessels. So when your insulin is not working well, it impairs that process of delivery of nitric oxide, to the blood vessel to cause it to open, and you have poor flow. Many diabetics on this, like you may also, many diabetics on this, you talk about neuropathy. Neuropathy is a result of poor flow due to impaired flow due to insulin resistance. Keith, did you have any neuropathy as a diabetic? That's a very common symptom, and could
Yeah,
you
you
speak to
you
that if you did?
you brought up circulation, and it reminded me that yeah, I had horrible neuropathy, almost unbearable in my feet. And since I've been on the protocol, that has all gone away. My foot doctor told me last time he saw me that he finally felt a pulse in my feet that he hadn't felt in a really long time. So yeah,
And you
um,
also had AFib gone
yeah,
too. So I,
AFib
I
is
had
gone.
AFib gone too, Dr. Dieter, and neuropathy. Both of us had that. So
Yeah. Yeah, so Steve, I hope that answers your questions, your question. Again, what this does, this is not a magic pill. This is not even a pill. This goes to reorder your biology, to cause your biology to start working back the way it's supposed to be working. Our cells need energy. I say it again, it's so simplistic but so profound. Our cells need energy. That stolen energy results in diseases. You give the cell back its stolen energy, things start working back again. Somebody asked a question about, can the supplement help with somebody experiencing substance use disorder like opioid, heroin, and marijuana? This is what I'm going to say. I think it could, and I'm going to extrapolate because I know Dr. Kenny, we have an alcoholic who was an alcoholic that this helped them to be able to reverse their alcohol dependence, and they are no longer an alcoholic. One thing that I know about substance use, the cravings are first of all driven by metabolic issue before there is psychological issue. What is causing you to crave the drug or this or that? You know, metabolic imbalances that result in that, gut dysbiosis, insulin resistance. If you could calm those metabolic issues, so for example, in related to cravings, dopamine is very huge in cravings. Sometimes the reason why we may crave going on Facebook to see who has liked our post or this and that is because there's some kind of a dopamine hit. Dopamine is produced in the gut. Okay. And when you have this biosis, there's an imbalance in that. It can cause impaired cravings for things. And by balancing the metabolic issues, it may take away those cravings. And as I say, we have somebody who was an alcoholic, had fatty liver disease, and was able to reverse their alcohol dependence by using that. Because in many cases, cravings are first of all metabolic before they are psychological. Those metabolic deficits trigger the cravings to get the hits and all of that. So this could be a good resource to help somebody battling substance use to be able to address the metabolic aspect that calms the noise down and reduces the cravings.
yeah, I've seen Diet Coke. People stop that. We're doing 5, 6 a day. Alcohol. I've seen 6 alcoholics never touch alcohol again.
Thank you.
Hmm Did you want to have Chopper share, or do you want to? Got a couple. I mean, we're over, so I want to be respectful too.
I'm leaving it to you guys, the moderators.
We'll let Chopper share and then open it up. Oh, Rav's on. Okay, Rav's calls on. Gotcha. Boom, boom, boom. Chopper, make it sweet and short, baby.
Okay. Hey, my name's Chopper. 25-year career firefighter, retired. I found the protocol honestly on TikTok with Dr. Kenny, and I was really in a bad spot when I started it. Quick story: 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with diabetes. The doctor didn't tell me for 2 years. Got in a really bad spot. Had diabetic ketoacidosis. Was in a coma for 7 days, ICU for 10, coded twice. Since then, I kind of messed around with different things until I come across this, and this has really changed my life completely. I suffer from PTSD, so I was getting 2 to 3 hours a night of sleep. Now I'm getting 6 to 7. I've lost 40 pounds. I've been on it since October the 15th, down a few sizes in my pants. I went from a 42, 40 or 42 to like a 36 and 34, depending on the make of the brand. My shirts, I wear extra large now instead of a 2XL or 3XL. It's been incredible. My vision has improved. I don't have to wear glasses at night when I drive anymore. It's been amazing. I can't stress how awesome I feel now. And the inflammation and the joint pain that I've had for the last 20 years because of my profession is subsiding, and the PTSD is quiet now in my head instead of just letting me know it's there and bugging me. So it's been amazing. I can't explain it. It's like magic, to be honest.
Well, Chopper, thank you. I know your mom's done well with it too, with her mood. You were telling me
Oh yeah,
like her arthritic joint pain as well, right?
yeah. She's one of those 10 Diet Coke people a day. Now she's 0, and she's walking better with no assistance or having to get a cane. So yeah, she's doing awesome, and it's amazing. It's an amazing product. It really is.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Dr. Dieter,
Anytime.
I'll allow you to close it up, brother. Thank you so much, Chopper.
Thank you. I'll answer one last question. Somebody was asking about eustachian tube dysfunction and if this can help with that. A good chunk of eustachian tube dysfunction is driven by inflammation. And inflammation, the source of inflammation is from the gut, usually. So restoring the gut helps to calm down inflammation. So think about inflammation as a fire, okay? And then insulin resistance is fuel that comes and dumps fuel on that fire. So when you have gut issues, those gut issues cause inflammation. When you have insulin resistance, that insulin resistance now acts like petrol on the fire. So addressing those two things can bring down the inflammation. And yes, you could see an improvement in symptoms of eustachian tube dysfunction because it is driven by inflammation. I tell you, many of the modern day chronic diseases we face, most of them, I kid you not. If you don't take my word for it, just go to ChatGTP or go to any of your favorite AI tools, and just Google what's the link between eustachian tube dysfunction and insulin resistance, or what's the link between PCOS and insulin resistance, or gut and what have you. You're going to see every time it comes back to these two things over and over and over again as the root cause. So I think somebody had a hand. I just want to take that question quickly and then I will close. I think I saw somebody had their hand up a little bit ago. Who was that? Somebody whose name started with a C. Are they still here? If you had your hand up, if you will put your hand back up and then we can unmute you. Let's see. Who was it? I don't know. It was Steve. Okay, Steve, if you want to speak, Amory, can you unmute Steve, please, for him to ask his question or what have you before we close?
Let's see here.
Was it Steve J or Steve? Well, okay, somebody is asking about the business part. Please get with whoever invited you to the talk today. We're talking just science today, but we'll be happy to tell you a little bit more about the business. So, Beatrice Favor, please answer the question about osteoarthritis. I think Dr. Kenny touched on it a little bit as well as Chopper. It helps to improve osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis is driven by chronic inflammation. Anything that ends with tis means inflammation. Osteoarthritis is driven by inflammation, and the number one reason inflammation starts by the immune system being crazy, the gut. When you have inflammation, is a fire, a chronic fire in your body. Insulin resistance is now like petrol that comes and puts fuel on that fire and causes the fire to continue to burn. So by removing the fuel, the insulin resistance, and controlling the inflammation, those two, controlling the gut, which resulted in the inflammation, the arthritis pain improves.
Did you see Yvette's question?
Okay,
Dr.
okay. Sure. Okay, if that, so in regards to the business, not so we're always looking for people to join us. Somebody asked about the business part. We always looking for people to join us or partner with us in this mission. We're trying to help as many people take their lives back. And there is a good health aspect of this which I enjoy, and there's equally a good business. I think that was Cynthia who had a hand up. Amarie, if you will unmute Cynthia so that she could talk. I knew it was somebody with a C. So we're always looking for people to join us to be able to become on our team. We don't have enough people to be enough people taking this message out. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a pharmacist or anything in the healthcare field. You have to be passionate about helping people to take their health back. And the business part of it, if you are interested, I'll just say reach out to whoever invited you. We could tell you a little bit more about it. But yes, obviously, there's a business aspect of it, which is very lucrative if you're interested in building wealth in a way that gives you freedom. And you're no longer tied to a 9 to 5 job and leverage. Please get with who invited you. I say the reason why there's a good business part of this is that you cannot put a value on your health. You cannot put a value on well-being. When people like Chopper or when people like Keith experience the reversal of their diabetes, they'll do everything in their life never to be diabetic again. Keith never wants to inject insulin. I'm not sure Chopper ever wants to take diabetic medications again. He has experienced what true lasting health is. He never wants to go back. And many people are looking for that. And this gives you the opportunity to solve a problem that almost everybody has. And so get with whoever invited you. They can tell you a little bit more. Cynthia, I'm going to ask you to unmute. And then we could. There you go. Thank you, Cynthia. I knew it was somebody with a C. You're the last. Let's give you the floor and then we'll wrap it up.
Hi, thank you so much for this good work that you're bringing into the community. So, I have this situation. I've been a shift work person for the last few years as a nurse, but at some point on the job, probably in like 2020, right after COVID, also well, right at the start of COVID, my system just crashed. Like it wasn't specific what happened to me, but every part of my body had an issue, GI, neurology, liver, everything had an issue. And so they couldn't figure out what was going on with me. But it brought me down to the point where first I couldn't even go to work anymore. I developed like fibromyalgia out of nowhere. I developed like extreme exhaustion, severe migraines, constant like constipation of 5 days plus, and I used to be very regular. That went away, all that period, and it came all at once. And so ever since then, I've not really been able to go back to myself. Hormonal imbalance was part of the issue too, like when everything happened. So right now, I'm not sure what to do to go to that self that I was in, prior to everything happening in 2020. But I know
Okay.
right around when my system crashed, that period, I had a weight of like 180 or so. But since then until now, I've gained about 30 pounds, and all the while not eating more than I used to, just actually a little less. And when I work night shift, I didn't eat more, like in
Yeah.
24-hour period. And
Yeah.
right now, I'm still not back to work because my system just has refused to, get out of sleep. And so
Yeah.
I feel
Uh,
stuck with diet and
I'm
exercise.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that, but let me give you hope. All the things that you have described fall in those two categories. You got insulin resistance and you got gut issues that have caused all that. Let me talk like the Nigerian man, all that wahala. All those issues are coming from those two things. Fibromyalgia, direct link to insulin resistance. The other things that you're explaining, inflammation and all of that, combined together with your gut. And I give you hope, Cynthia, that these two things are sitting at the core of your issues. They have stolen your biology, and you can restore the stolen biology with this system. Those symptoms you enumerated, cry out insulin resistance, cry out gut dysbiosis, and this should be hope to you.
Okay.
Okay?
And just to add to that, not anything different, but I do have a history of rheumatoid arthritis, if at all that,
Yeah,
is it.
rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases
But
come from an unhealthy gut.
yep.
Okay.
Dysbiosis, yeah.
Hey, Dr.
So,
Dieter, I got to run, man. It's
yeah.
9:30. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Kenny. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Please get with whoever invited you to the call tonight. If you're listening to this, you're interested in trying the product. Some of you may be interested in learning more about the business. Get with whoever invited you. We are always looking for people to be part of our team. And also, we do these calls every Monday and every Sunday and Mondays. So you may want to invite somebody to the next call next happening on Sunday or Monday. Please do so. We will love for them to be exposed to this information. Thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to sharing another evening with you guys again. Good night.